And obviously, none of you could be in both places at the same time. And so, naturally, there is a hunger to know what happened in the other sessions. So this session is going to satisfy that thirst. To moderate this session and get the gist of all the other sessions, I have the pleasure of inviting Mr. V.R. Raman. Mr. Raman has been introduced earlier, but since I have this opportunity, I'd like to just one more time, in brief, introduce Mr. Raman. Mr. Raman is a public policy expert with over 3 decades of work across India and globally. He has worked with government, research and academic organizations, and development organizations across sectors such as water, sanitation, environment, climate change, disaster management, health, nutrition, and education, with focus on public policy, financing, governance, and community participation. Specifically in the water sector, he has headed the policy vertical of Water Aid, an international water sector organization, and was policy research mentor for ATREE, ATREE, and Environment and Ecology Research think tank. He's also the India focal person with the Water and Sanitation Learning Hub at the Institute of Development Studies at Sussex, UK. He served the Joint Expert Committee of World Health Organization and International Water Association on water safety planning as well. Currently, he works as the Executive Director of the Center for Budget Accountability at New Delhi. He also serves as the National Convener for the Public Health Resource Network, India. It is an extreme pleasure and honor for me to invite Mr. V.R. Rahman to take over this session as moderator, sir.
Thanks for having me here and introduction. So this session is going to be the penultimate session of the flow of learning that we had over the last 2 days, yesterday morning onwards, and also the efforts that the team of Meghalaya officials and the various departments of government of Meghalaya that they put together, led by the government leadership and the official leadership and the staff over here. The 2 months efforts also will kind of conclude after that. So this session will be immediately followed by the valedictory session. We will not have that kind of a break because, in order to manage time and to give participants time after the conference, we are clubbing this. So in this session, the idea is that since we were at least for 8 specific topics, the entire audience were in 2 halls. So it is important that we know what happened, what course of discussion happened over when we were attending some specific topic, what was happening on the other side. That kind of a knowledge we will have. But beyond that part will be there in the valedictory session. But beyond that, what we are looking forward now in the almost 45 minute to 1 hour time now is to each session has put forward a very clear way forward for the hill regions in terms of what deliberation went on there and the contents of that. That's a different issue which we will discuss later. Now we are going to focus on very specifically, if Meghalaya want to take up the kind of key pointers in terms of learning and action, what should be taken up from each of the session. That's what we are going to look at now. And then 2 of the senior officials of the state who is kind of leading drinking water component and water resources and climate component of the state will listen to all these way forward recommendation and make reflections on it by way of how the respective programs and missions and various initiatives that the state is undertaking is going to see these kind of way forward recommendations and how they can include them as learning, as action, as technological innovation, as whatever the kind of suggestion that is coming in. So they will reflect and share with the audience here that this is how Meghalaya may consider this recommendation. That is how the structure of this session is. So let me now, call upon to the dais various. So as chair for the session today, he is also the secretary for PHED and Public Works Department, Education Department. All these departments, as commissioner and secretary, he is taking care of. So I invite Sri Andali Brasi. He is the mission director of the Jal Jeevan mission also. So there will be, from the drinking out water perspective, infrastructure perspective, lot many things. He is going to listen to the moderators and reflect upon. As the co-chair for this discussion, I invite Sri Joram Beda. He is commissioner and secretary on various departments. That includes some of the key departments like planning. He's into soil and water conservation, and he's into health. He's into climate change. He leads the center on climate change. He is in technological mission. Lot many insights that has come out are going to be the. So what kind of appetite the state is having, he's going to look at and reflect upon at the end of the. Now let me invite Sri Sibyl Chakrabarti Sadhu. He is Water Resources Fisheries. He is the Secretary of Government of Meghalaya. He has been chairing sessions. So all of them were part of various sessions. So we are seeing them, but now they are going to come. So Mr. Sadhu was chairing one session, moderating one session. So he'll be reflecting upon how water and livelihoods were seen. And also one plenary session that happened, about the future of hill systems. Some of the learnings from there also I request Mr. Sadhu to, he will be presenting. Now let me call upon all other moderators one by one to the dais. Eklavya Prasad, who was moderating the first best practices plenary, please come on. Asad Umar, from the Eklavya is from the Make Pine Abhiyan. Asad Umar from the Aga Khan Foundation, he chaired the session on source sustainability. Asad, please come in and take your seat. Sri Saransh Vajpayee, Saransh, please come. He was moderating the session on climate change, water, climate change, and disasters. Please come on. And now, Vishwanath Sinha. Saransh is from the World Resources Institute. Yeah. Vishwanath Sinha is from the Water Aid, and he was moderating the session very, the water, gender, and equity. That perspectives, Vishwanath was moderating that session. Vishwanath, please come over. Abhishek Likam, he was co-moderating the session on spring shed management. He is from Aquadam, Chirag, one of the pioneering organization in the Uttarakhand hill regions who has worked on, including in the northeastern state, they have a lot of work done in the spring shed related work. And now I call upon Mr. P.M. Scott. He is the member of the Central Water Commission. Please come on, and you are, moderating the session on water and infrastructure development, and please, join to share the insights from that session. And Sri Vivek Kumar Griwal, yeah, he is from the Water Environment Learning Lab, Bangalore. Water, environment, livelihood, and yeah. So, and he was moderating the rivers and water system, session. So we have and Dr. V.K. Misra from ICAR, NER region. All right. Uh, so we have, the session on Springshed was coordinated between. So the session was chaired by uh, the my colleague from Aquadam. Uh, so since it was between two organizations, uh, Chirag is here. So now we are going to take just 3 minutes each. So that is something that I would request everyone, because we have to go for the just the key things. What are the way forward that we are suggesting for the government of Meghalaya and other hill region states to take up as a follow up of this? Do you have mics over there? You want to speak from there? It is all right. So yeah. So then I'll keep my position here, so that yeah, Eklave, you why don't you start from there?
Raman, uh, just for a recap, the session that I was moderating had experiences from Asia and Pacific, Cambodia, Nepal, Kerala, Himachal Pradesh, and Meghalaya. The suggestions that came in the session on best practices was basically integrated water management approach with decentralized water governance framework, including the autonomous councils. Second, effective utilization of floodwater. Third, focus on identifying quality hotspots and develop ways of collectively responding to the water quality challenges through governance community framework. Third, Fourth, mapping of waning traditional water systems, technologies, and local lived experiences. Fifth, community and climate ecosystem based water management interventions. Sixth, modernizing traditional water management systems. And last, harmonious collaboration for water based interventions.
Okay, thank you. So now I am requesting Saransh from the climate session. What all are the key takeaways?
Thank you, Raman.
Way forward.
So the session on climate, water, and disasters attempted to deliberate upon two things. One, key challenges in planning and implementation aimed at building the resilience of key economic sectors, including water, in the face of climate change and induced disasters. And second, it discussed various facets necessary to create an integrated and holistic approach to tackle this issue. So the challenges are well known in this August gathering. I would like to summarize the elements of the approach or the framework as per the following bucketed categories. One, data informed analysis and assessments. This requires partnerships and collaborations with technical institutions, think tanks, and research organizations to carry out these scientific assessments. Further, and this is important, as we are doing a data intensive assessment in a data scarce environment, it is prudent to create robust in state data management practices so that all the data which is being generated is accessible and available to all. The second, inclusive planning. Using the analysis and assessments carried out in the first step to inform the planning and forward looking policy making process. Further, there is a need to ensure that inclusivity principles are enshrined in this at three levels: inclusivity of process, inclusivity of policy, and inclusivity of impacts, meaning that the policy should not lead to any negative impacts on certain stakeholders. And this requires stakeholder mapping and having a deep engagement with them at all stages of the policy making process. Third, effective and integrated implementation. Necessary mandates need to be created and resources allocated towards this step. Improving understanding of risk
in the planning processes, guidelines, disaster management plans, etc. Fourth, robust MEL, meaning monitoring, evaluation, and learning. There's a need to identify indicators to measure the effectiveness of implementation based on targets identified in the planning process above. These may include not just quantitative indicators, but also qualitative parameters to capture social equity, gender aspects as well. And finally, there is a need for a transformative governance mechanism and associated reforms, which adopts a whole of government approach to break the silos and enhance coordination and cooperation within state departments and parastatal agencies. This should be supplemented with appropriate means of implementation of capacity building, awareness, technology transfer, and finance. Thank you.
Thanks, Saransh. Now, Abhishek, would you like to speak about the springshed development? What are the key?
Yeah, so the discussion on springshed management was very successful in unanimously agreeing to the aspect that springs are very relevant in the current times. In fact, the rivers and large water bodies rejuvenation is very critical on the springshed and its management as a fundamental. So there are certain 5 6 actionable items that have come out uh, based on the deliberations, which includes, so there's a lot of inventories and the data that is being gathered for identifying the criticality of the springs. So there is a need that these interfaces or information is applied in understanding the vulnerabilities, dependence, socio-economic and cultural aspects that get involved with the community. So this point of view needs to be looked at while collecting the information so that we can influence the narratives around the springshed and its urgency. And there was one more recommendation that the API access to the formats, technology, and the data that is being gathered needs to be made open access so that people do not struggle in terms of in case there are any new apps that are there that needs to be embedded in the further data use and its application. And the third recommendation was to have a bottoms up approach where empowering communities, building their capacities, and allocation of funds and involving incentive based mechanisms is one critical aspect that needs to be embedded in all the springshed management initiatives being taken forward. The successes in the form of key resource person or the para hydrogeologist as well as the VCFs needs to be replicated wherever the springshed management is being thought of for application. And there needs to be an encouragement for informed decision based on the data that is being collected. And the entire panel and the discussions recommend that collaborations can pave way for more innovative as well as resource optimized solutions to the problem. And so collaboration needs to happen among all the departments and all the projects that are targeting at water based on the access, improving access, quality, as well as the distribution. So that is one of the key aspects. And the last but very important one is to have a channelized fund flow mechanism, because with many departments there are a lot of funds that are being allocated that can be utilized for springshed and the contemporary challenges that we face in carrying out the springshed management. So these are certain
Yeah.
key pointers, actionables that have come out from the discussion.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Abhishek. Vishwanath, now would you like to? So this is about water, gender, and equity.
I just sent 2 slides. If those can be just showcase there, if it is possible.
No, slide is not given.
Otherwise, I will just summarize here.
Yeah,
No
please.
problem. So in our session, which was water, gender, and equity, we had 4 speakers. So one is Dr. Indira Phukan. She is from GIZ with extensive work experience in hilly regions. Then we had Prakash Singh from Uttarakhand, who has implemented successful water management program in the mid Himalayan region. And then we had Ms. Hasina Kharbi. She runs an NGO in Meghalaya. and the work got expanded to other countries as well, essentially on anti-trafficking, but also the work got extended to other natural resource management, including water management. And then we had Professor Sukalpa Bhattacharya, professor from Northeast Hill University, English department. Out of the four presentations, one was specifically, in the form of PPT presentation, and rest three were more on perspective building based on their own experiences and understanding about gender and equity in water management. So thereby the discussion actually went on touching upon on various aspects. We wanted to just, break down it into 6 or 7 different categories, which I will conclude quickly. And then, as a way forward from the discussion, I will just, take another 1 minute or so to summarize the
Maybe we can
the
look at
gist
the
of
way
the.
forward only here.
Okay, that is also possible. So I would just would like to highlight the fact that uh, from the outlook of it, it looks like uh, gender and equity is a simple thing, which is not. So thereby, we have to understand the gender sensitive policies and initiatives. We also have to enhance women's participation and resilience. We also have to take care of the fact that reducing drudgery and promoting inclusivity is going to be critical element going forward. We have to also give priority to gender inclusivity in innovative projects, and also their participation in implementation of policy and also in monitoring. So these cannot be isolated from each other, and there should be a holistic approach, and it has to be institutionalized for sustaining the mechanism. And then there should be a promoting agency which will actually ensure that the gender inclusivity and equity part is taken care of. And we have to also break stereotypes. So the final summary is like this. So if we look the national water policy, so there has been 3 versions so far. The first Indian national water policy came in 1987, and it did not have a single word in the policy document as women or gender. Not even once these words were mentioned. In the second version, which was in 2002, women was actually added, but the gender participation was not given so much of importance. Only in the latest national water policy document, which is 2012, which was published in 2012, gender inclusivity was touched upon extensively. However, even though these aspects have been ensured in the documents, we have to ensure further that you know just because gender and equity parts should be taken care of in water management is not going to actually solve our societal problem. So thereby we have to also ensure that the gender aspects are and also incorporated in other cross-cutting areas. For example, even in ecological rights, taken into a consideration of cultural aspects of different communities, and even the human right aspects. And finally, we have to ensure that all these policy documents are actually brought into effectively in practices, and to ensure that in the current scenario, we have to have an institutional mechanism or agency where not only when we are actually talking about gender, it is not about just uh, men and women, but even underrepresented other genders should also be part of the decision making. And last point was, since increasingly we are actually depending much on technology in all our natural resource management and other decision making process, we have to ensure that technologies are developed to actually facilitate this gender inclusivity, and also there should be, probably it will be also a good idea to have certain aspects of technological intervention where um, weaker genders or the other genders can actually take more active role. For example, in Jal Jeevan Mission, field testing kits is going to be an important element across all the villages in India. So whether those technological aspects can be taken care of uh, by consideration of including the gender aspects there. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishwanath. So around gender, we have a cool set of way forward that is coming. Asad, would you like to now
Thank you, Raman.
talk on the source
Source
sustainability
sustainability
aspect?
session, yeah. So in fact, we had some insightful and informative presentation from source sustainability session yesterday. That has also reaffirmed some of the broader views that in a fragile ecosystem, protection, preservation, as well as efficient and responsible usage of water resources must be a way forward. A very interesting presentation from PHE Meghalaya sir is sitting here that has shown the way that it is not only uh, creation of water supply infrastructure, but greater awareness and understanding of targeted recharge through spring inventories or spring shed management can achieve water security not only for the design population, but also to meet the future requirement. To maximize the outcome of any water source sustainability or water conservation effort. PHE Meghalaya is of the opinion that it is water losses happening through distribution network, it is water wastage, and above all, protection of water sources must be prioritized. And this is not only for Meghalaya, but entire Himalayan region and hilly region. This is a sort of kind of way forward. Now, the other presentation I would like to highlight the efforts of ICAR that has clearly demonstrated that academic and research institutions, through their outreach activities and action research, can empower and equip local institutions and communities to adopt improved water conservation approaches. How technology can emerge as an enabler to resolve some of the pressing water related challenges is something that Meghalaya Basin Development Authorities has clearly presented and highlighted. In their efforts at sub-basin level, how decentralized waste management approaches and empowerment of local institutions can achieve some of the targeted interventions around water conservation activities and can also resolve some of the local challenges around water management. Now, another key takeaway from this particular session was, again, in a fragile ecosystem, how efforts of MGNREGA could be a game changer for water conservation and source sustainability uses. And this is something that State Rural Employment Society has clearly demonstrated by adopting a sort of uh, participatory planning approaches, empowerment of local institutions and CBOs, as well as promotion of equitable distribution of water or equity, and as well as gender mainstreaming. Now, under Jal Jeevan Mission, source sustainability and protection is critical, and this can be achieved through latest tools such as remote sensing, GIS, or even some of the groundwater modeling related aspects. And this is something that PHE Assam has clearly demonstrated that. Now, finally, I would conclude that springs and streams are the traditional and key sources of water, and ensuring that they do not disappear is imperative. And this can be achieved through integrated scientific and community centered approaches and by a strong water governance structure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Asad. Now, Mr. Scott, from the session on water and infrastructure development, what are the key way forwards?
Thank you, Mr. Raman. So I was moderating the session on water and infrastructure development. There were six presenting organizations comprising of NIPCO, ICAR, National Institute of Hydrology, National Water Development Agency, and Dam Safety Organization, and the Central Water Commission. So I'll just be reading what are the takeaways. Uh, the first is most of our hilly states, we have a lot of water resources potential, but only a small percentage of this has been exploited so far. So the suggestion here is that all this unexploited potential may be exploited from the remaining promising sites so that the storage capacity of each state can be enhanced to cater to the needs of drinking water, irrigation, industry, and hydropower generation. Similarly, interbasin water transfer should also be taken up. One prime example of inter-basin water transfer is what we have in the state of Meghalaya. That is this series of Umyam Umtru projects. The water from Umyam Basin is transferred to Umtru Basin. And the second point which we are recommending is that the threat of glacial lake outburst flood is becoming more prevalent. Now, these glacial lakes are like time bombs sitting high up on the mountains. And in the hilly Himalayan regions, all these new water resources projects which are being planned, they should be designed taking into account the GLOF factor. Earlier, these projects, they were primarily designed for probable maximum flood. But now with GLOF in the picture, we have to add on this GLOF factor also during the design stage. The third one is that regarding the state of the art technologies such as digital twins, Google Earth Engine, water accounting, along with artificial intelligence and machine learning predictive models, should be utilized for water resources planning and management. Uh, One point which I would like to say here that in the case of our Sora and Cherrapunji, it may be called the world's wettest desert. We have a lot of water, but it also has a lot of fog. Now, fog is also consisting of water droplets. So maybe we should think out of the box and try to capture water from that fog. Such technology is also being deployed in South America in the Atacama Desert and also in parts of Africa. So Meghalaya can look into this also to augment water needs of the villages there. Next, our reservoirs and natural water bodies can be integrated into the National Water Bank to reduce the demand supply gap scenarios. Further, the water in such bodies, just like we have our dams and reservoirs, can also be gainfully utilized for pisciculture, for which additional revenue generation can be had. Next point pertains to the extreme events which is happening in the hilly regions. These are increasing and the devastation is very high. And therefore, the design of such water related infrastructure should consider the aspects of water and climate extreme events and disasters. Next point pertains to recycling. So, looking into water recycling and green energy initiatives, the hilly states and the regions in the hilly states should be explored for pump storage hydropower projects wherever feasible. The projects will have lower susceptibility to climate change. The next point, the hilly states can scale up the infrastructure for monitoring of the water quality of their rivers and the water bodies. In this regard, the Government of India can render technical assistance, especially on aspects relating to pesticides and trace and toxic elements. The next point pertains to training. So, capacity building of state government officials, farmers, NGOs, etc., can be availed from central training institutes such as the National Water Academy, at Pune, the Northeastern Regional Institute of Water and Land Management at Tejpur, the National Institute of Hydrology, Roorkee, and so on and so forth. Lastly, the dam safety measures should be adhered religiously as per the recently enacted National Dam Safety Act, which was enacted in the year 2021. This I say, especially in the case of Mauplang Dam, which supplies drinking water supply to the city of Shillong. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Scott, for that thing. Now, Vivek, it's about rivers and water system. Can you please summarize that?
Thank you. So I was moderating the session on rivers and water systems, and I think the speakers provided great presentations on river basin management in different areas. Like we had one on Krishna, another in Irrawaddy in Myanmar, another in Mahanadi, and one in Kerala. So there were practical recommendations on what would help in these areas, and all of these areas do have hilly areas within it. These basins do have them. So one of the first things that we discussed was on water systems and essentially their interconnectedness and how we should be not working on these elements separately, as we've discussed in the first plenary also, but looking at them holistically as a system. We were thinking about the elephant and the blind man allegory, that people should not be working on separate things, but look at it as a holistic thing. And we realized it would be essentially the scientists and the government which have to take the responsibility of looking at the whole elephant, which is the water system and its interconnected parts. And I guess most of us do come from those communities. So that was one. And then rivers embody the water systems essentially, because they are literally connecting the top and the bottom and every dimension of the water system. So in that sense, in a practical sense, the way it can be done is through river basin management agencies. You can call them whatever you want, but and there are agencies which are set up by the national and the state governments, but some rivers or smaller streams don't have it, or sometimes there are agencies but they're not empowered, or in through functions or functionaries or funds. So all of those things, I think we were discussing that essentially to bring it together, to bring the system together, there should be these watershed based, or let's say basin based agencies which should be empowered. And then how they could be doing that is through one point was discussed, that there were a lot of modeling discussions, and we realized that often the uncertainty in modeling is very high. Like sir was talking about digital twins, essentially it's modeling. The uncertainty is very high often because of lack of data, like in stream flow. And this is a relatively low hanging fruit for the government, that if there can be enough data, it's a simple enough process to get that and do and understand the systems holistically. So that was one. And then in terms of solutions, whenever a river basin agency kind of builds the plan, we all know it, like we can identify the key areas that are there, and essentially we know the common solutions like watershed management and demand management and those things. But every basin, every river, every stream area has its own problems. So such localized agencies can solve their own, find their own problem areas, and also align the different sectors, the water use sectors in those agencies, in those areas. So like we were talking about the Tungabhadra, where essentially the same dam is the water of that dam is being pulled off in 5 directions by 5 different types of users. That has to be, everybody has to come to the table and talk about it, how to allocate it better, how to maximize their water use efficiency. So that was one. And then finally, on the ecological restoration, also we were discussing how essentially localized watershed management interventions revive the ecology and those should form the basis, because yeah, the natural ecosystem is a central part in the water system. So that should also be taken care of. And I believe we were discussing the Shillong Declaration drafts, and I think most of these points, a lot of these do align with that also, in terms of alignment of participatory planning, alignment of water use, and all of those areas like ecological restoration. So I believe we can go ahead and talk about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Vivek. Now, before I call upon Mr. Shibi, let me put up the session, way forwards from the water quality participation and governance. So this session had thrown light to very important way forwards, not only on the quality side of it. So, for one important suggestion that came up was that although it was offline, not online, how the departments can focus not just on the processes, but what is coming out of it. So the chief minister also, during the inaugural, he was speaking about, we did this, we set up this, we set up this, rather than what kind of result it led to. So that focus, how to build up, was coming in over the lunch discussion. And one important thing is, while the Jal Jeevan Mission National is the field testing kits has its own limitations, wherein it is not looking at some of the parameters, and our laboratory systems are having some limitation. The Pollution Control Board is looking at some issues that has some limitation. So, how to ensure that all specific geographical, the specific situation around this geography, hill geography, whichever parameters are to be looked at, how to look at regional specific parameters and decide upon that and try to build systems for looking at water quality was something that came up. The second thing was around the capacities of people who are into water quality or leading mobilization or leading the governance part of the institutional capacities, all this, how to build up that, how to have the inrams model was coming in this particular wherein you can have digital and distance learning processes for making different sets of people aware about the set of knowledge that and skill sets that they need to have on water quality management and participating effectively, so on and so forth. So Inram had shared their ways of how they engage with a very minimum human resources. How are they able to reach out to a large number of states and districts and set up district level water quality expert teams. So that was something that was coming in. So district team and the online courses were coming in as some very important and appropriate technology, particularly in the sanitation, came in as a feature, so that in the future the vulnerable ecosystems of hill regions are not getting affected because of the sanitation water intersection, and also because of the specific what you call technology related issues. So that is one thing came up. And the other thing, how to have a framework approach with a very clear institutional framework development through experiential kind of learning. So various states wherein Mekpain Abhiyan had experimented and developed some very clear pointers for this develop. So how to apply this existing knowledge of civil society organization, wherein one of the important thing is that the civil society organization cannot apply the scale. The scales are very limited and the governments can do scale. So how from that lower scale the knowledge can be upscale is a very important recommendation that came in over there. And then uh, the the water stories of Northeast, how to learn from that. So, Eclavia was, in case that book is there with you, you can show it also. Yeah. So there is a very important book that so how to make the living experiences, the tacit knowledge of people, how to use that in improving quality, governance, and participation was coming up as, and of course, training and capacity building in the way that could be done. And the final thing was, that was very, very critical, I think. How to have community governance of water, the governance model of water was something, with very specific principles as a set of recommendation that came in. So three principles were about the political functions, how to define on the various aspects of water quality, governance, etc., sustainability, and how to kind of achieve that by way of continuous engagement with the decision makers at the legislative level, and how to make the management functions from the grassroots level to the state level, executive level, how to make that clarity. That was another kind, and then regulatory framework which is missing in the entire processes, that was highlighted as an important issue. And then the integration, conflict resolution, and legal mandates, these three things came in for improving the water resources management, water quality management, and governance. And finally, the key issue that has come up was that the challenges of hill region, this process of learning how to continue this, and the adaptation, and building up the existing tacit knowledge into applied knowledge, that was some coming in as one of the recommendation, and that is where the session on water quality, participation, and governance came up. Now let me request Mr. Shibi Chakravarti Sadhu. He was chairing the session on water and livelihoods, and he was also there in the session on future of the hill lives. So, what are the key learnings coming from there? Over to you, Mr. Shibi.
Thank you, Mr. Raman. The first session, that is water and livelihoods, that was today's first session with a primary. This all speakers gave primary focus to fisheries sector, where the key takeaway would be is that how to utilize the existing river network of around 5,600 kilometers in Meghalaya to develop community based fish sanctuaries to create more employment, more livelihoods around water is a key takeaway from this session. Again, integrated farming by combining fishery sector along with poultry sector and other agriculture and allied sectors is also one of the key takeaways that we can implement in our state. And also the other session, which again stresses the importance of learning from our farmers, which again in Meghalaya we have a lot of this age-old knowledge. How do we document it? How do we use it and replicate in other parts of the state? And again, this climate resilient water harvesting systems by participatory approach, by involving people, and also enhancement of the knowledge basically of the people by creating a value chain around fisheries sector in our state is also one of the key takeaways of this, in the first session. And again, coming to this online, this was an online session on hill systems. So again, the how do we use the latest technologies so that the life of treated bamboo can be improved, and we can blend with both bamboo and plastic to create this drip irrigation systems, cost effective drip irrigation system which can reach remote or hard to reach areas in our state, as has been discussed and has been proposed for in our state. And again, as Meghalaya is one of the as like any other hill state, disaster prone areas, particularly in monsoon seasons. So those techniques, how do we take the participation, how do we involve people to tackle these disasters during this particularly monsoon season is one of the important key takeaways. Again, we're coming back to the addressing the pollution in water bodies by people policy and nature collaboration. As you will see that recently government of Meghalaya has taken a lot of initiative in clean rivers. So how do we bring people policy and nature together, particularly if you see in Shillong and many of the urban areas that rivers are being polluted? To address this challenge, how do we tweak our or bring a policy framework to address this issue has also been a key takeaway. And this session, all these two sessions, definitely benefited all the participants in this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Mr. Shibi. Now, after listening to the summaries of all the sessions, the hosts who wanted to learn from this collective bringing in all the kind of knowledges, experiences, and all that from various part of the various countries which are having almost similar kind of geographical terrain and all that. So we had a lot of learnings that has come up, and most of you were part of many sessions you have attended, so you have the primary kind of exposure to these discussions also, in addition to the summary that has come up. Now that how as the host state, and similarly I would request all the various people with the executive or implementation responsibilities coming from various states, you also think of how these kind of learning that has been summed up here can be applied in our future policies, programs, executive decisions, legal measures, regulatory measures, and the ground level initiatives. And what kind of reflections are these learnings and these experiences are giving or coming to us, and what kind of learnings we think that we can translate them on a short term kind of process, and what kind of things can be medium term, and what kind of things can be long term, and what are the importance of these kinds of learning processes. All these are important for all of us to reflect upon. But as representative of all of us, I request these two senior officials of government of Meghalaya to make that reflection. So first of all, many of the reflections, the pointers and the learning that has come are related to the departments that you are handling. So I invite Mr. Joram Beda to come over here and to make your reflections about how these deliberations are going to help your work in Meghalaya.
Thank you very much. I've been requested to summarize basically whatever has been said, shown, and heard in this conclave from the climate change perspective. So I'll be doing exactly that. Whenever climate change as a topic comes up for discussion, 3 points come to the fore. Number one is that climate change is real, and unless we act now, the ramifications will be irreversible in a very short period of time. Number two, we are at a tipping point. Number three, just as climate change is imminent, development is also imminent. We cannot stop development at the cost of our apprehensions for climate change. And hence, the world governments have come together for the sustainable goals. Unfortunately, in this conclave, we did not discuss SDGs. Maybe in the next edition, we will certainly have a panel discussion also on sustainable development goals. Now, key to any policy or action in terms of climate change for the hilly region is the fact that the hilly ecosystem is a very fragile ecosystem, is very vulnerable, and our moderators have also touched upon that point. Hence, it's our responsibility to focus on climate resilient interventions. And this can be realized through four approaches. And broadly, these four approaches have been covered by all the moderators here, and uh, they have moderated on respective panels, and these have come for discussion time and again. So number one is community approach. Number two is watershed-centric approach. Number three is integrated approach. And number four is appropriate technology. When we talk about community approach, more than democracy, it's water which is for the people, by the people, and of the people. And we should understand that water, as any precious commodity, is also exposed to the dynamics of demand and supply, and that was what our additional chief secretary mentioned in the inaugural address. Watershed centric approach is the most important when it comes to the various conservation approaches, and no intervention can be without a source centric approach. For instance, in Meghalaya, our commissioner PHE will agree, the department had in the last 2 years, rather 1.5 years. They worked so hard, so efficiently that the Jal Jeevan mission, which has not taken off in the state in the last 1.5 years, they've covered more than 40 to 50%. It was like an army which went ahead, attacked, and conquered the land, but they left behind a lot of enemies, remnant enemies, and that's the source. And many of the sources have become critical now. There are water supply tap connections, but no water. And that is one indication of the climate change effect on a uh, fragile ecosystem such as ours. We have identified 688 critical water sources in which, through convergence, we are doing our interventions. Now, when we talk about watershed-centric approach, Springshed has been touched upon. It has come repeatedly in many of the discussions, command area interventions and catchment area interventions. Now, for all these interventions, the crucial point is afforestation. When we come to integrated approach, again, time and again, everybody has repeatedly mentioned and stressed on breaking the silos to have a one government approach. Many departments are currently working on the same issue from a different perspective. We need to unify, we need to uh, sort of synchronize our efforts and try to reach the outcome. The fourth is the appropriate technology. We saw a presentation by Uttarakhand yesterday, and I'm as the head of the MNREGA, that is the Meghalaya New and Renewable Development Agency. It clicked my mind that this could be sort of implemented in Meghalaya as well. The next important point, which is policy and regulatory mechanisms. I would again reiterate that Mr. Sinha was mentioning about the national water policy. Meghalaya was the first state to implement the policy, and it also had envisaged that there should be a efficient regulatory mechanism as emphasized by the Secretary Ministry of Jal Shakti. Our policy, it recognizes water as a common pool resource. It stresses on efficient allocation. This is again what was said in the inaugural address of this conclave. Our conservation principles are based on 3 Rs: reduce, recycle, and reuse. Again, one of the moderators had mentioned about that as well. Community participation has been re-emphasized again and again. Efficient regulatory mechanism I've already mentioned. And finally, I would like to reiterate, re-emphasize what our Chief Minister mentioned. All these discussions, deliberations are fine, but what about the outcomes? And that is something we all need to think upon, we all need to act upon. And when it comes to outcome, it's the key performance indicators that we need to list out and assess ourselves whether all the efforts that we're putting in are actually giving its effect. So with this, I would like to conclude my assessment and summarization. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm also glad that while we are discussing this way forward and the key reflections on that, we have the Chief Secretary of the State, Sri D.P. Walang, is also here. Welcome you, sir. uh, now it is, the chair of the session and, the Commissioner and Secretary for PWD, PHED and Education. Most of the point that has come has to do with the missions and programs that you are dealing with as well. So how these learnings can be synthesized and acted upon and further taken into as learnings for others? Your reflections, please.
Thank you, Mr. Raman. And I take this opportunity to welcome our respected Chief Secretary to this session. And it's appropriate that at the conclusion of this session, our CS is there to actually have an idea about what went on over the last 2 days. So a lot of us have been in different sessions, and obviously everyone couldn't have been all the sessions. So I thank all the moderators present on the stage here who have very succinctly summarized the key takeaways from each session. And my colleague Dr. Beda has nicely summarized the takeaways as far as the uh, climate and disaster aspects are concerned. And a lot of these recommendations which have come out from different sessions are related to water, specifically drinking water and its related aspects. So I'll just quickly summarize what I could gather, what has transpired in different sessions, and the recommendations which are for government of Meghalaya and other stakeholders also present here. So one thing which was a common theme across all discussion is that since there are multiple departments in the government working in the same sector of water, the broad area water, so a whole of government approach is required. So for this, I'd like to inform the August gathering here. In Meghalaya, actually, the approach towards water is a whole of government approach. The Honorable Chief Minister and the respective Chief Secretary, they're personally involved in all aspects. None of the departments actually are working in silos. And as far as drinking water is concerned, what public health engineering department is doing is providing tap connections and managing the demand side of the scheme. However, there are multiple departments like CNRD, soil and water conservation, forest environment, water resources, agencies like MBDA, which are working on the supply side. They are into the restoring, rejuvenating, and conserving the different water sources, including springs. So that work is ongoing. I'm not saying that we have achieved what we have set out to, but there is a beginning, and we definitely hope to see results and a tangible outcome, in the sense that all connections in rural areas which are provided are tap water is available. Right now, this number stands at more than 4,80,000. It's 4,84,000, and we are few hundred connections away from covering 75% of total rural population in the state. So that is one aspect. And another recommendation which has come out of the deliberations is a common thread. I've picked up on common threads which I've run across is community engagement and decentralized governance of uh, the water related issues. So the Jal Jeevan mission is also the first step of it is putting an infrastructure in place, and which I hope are the present here, the experts present here, and the August gathering, they will agree that setting up infrastructure is more efficient when it's the at least the infrastructure part is done at a centralized basis, at least monitor at a centralized level. However, once the infrastructure is in place, the idea, the policy, the direction which the government of Meghalaya is working on is handing over that infrastructure, at least the in-village infrastructure, to the village communities, engagement of the women-led self-help groups into operation and maintenance of these assets. So small beginnings have been made in this direction. A few hundred villages already, this in-village infrastructure is being maintained by the local village communities. They're realizing water user charges, which go on from 50 rupees 50 per household to even 100 in different places. And we have also done skilling for local people to ensure that these schemes remain sustainable. However, the recommendations of the different experts is well taken. We'll work towards better ensuring of decentralized governance of the drinking water infrastructure in the state. Another recommendation which came out of I think couple of sessions was to document and mainstream the traditional practices. And I do agree that there are
several practices being available in the community by practice by the local communities, which are going a long way in conserving their resources. So we did make a small attempt to document these practices over the last year. However, it needs to be mainstreamed and demonstrated for others also to follow. So this recommendation is also well taken, and we, I think, several departments will take this forward. Some of it is already being done, but we intend to take it forward. And then another recommendation which came out was a data-informed decision making and open access to data. And this, under the leadership of our ACS Water Resources, the State Water Informatics Center has been set up, and data which is available with multiple departments and agencies is being centralized. So this is a work in progress, and we hopefully it will see results soon. As far as the rural water supply sector is concerned, the data is actually on the JGM dashboard. It is open access. It is available in public domain, right down to the individual beneficiary level. Anyone can go to a particular village and check out the details of the beneficiary who have been extended with the water supply connection. So this also is a work in progress, and it's a recommendation that has come strongly from, I think, 2 or 3 sessions. So we'll work on it. And gender and session was held on gender and water, and mainstreaming gender in water governance and water quality as well. So in Meghalaya, we have trained women, at least more than one and up to 5 women in almost 5,000 villages across the state in use of field testing kits. So, and women are members, at least 50% members of all village water and sanitation committees are women in the state. So, women who have benefited tangibly with the implementation of Jal Jeevan Mission in the villages in the state are also at this center of the governance structures that have been set up. And further, for the operation and maintenance of the in-village infrastructure, it is the O&M policy is in active consideration in the government with the different departments, and it is also being actively considered for involving the women-led SHGs into the O&M structure in the state. And a session of source sustainability, which I was also present, is actually something where you can see multiple departments working in this sector and their efforts being coordinated at the top level, at the level of Honorable CM and CS, that the requisite interventions are made for sustaining our drinking water sources and also the health of rivers and streams in the state. An interesting session was on water infrastructure, and Bascott made some recommendations of some innovative technologies. And if we had unlimited amount of resources, we'd be more than happy as a state to try to make use of this technology. So I hope in the detailed deliberations, there are recommendations for some cost-effective technologies which we'd like to take up in the state. So this is a quick summary of the deliberations of the recommendations of across the different panels, and I very useful and important points have come out of it. And from the state side, we definitely hope to take it forward from here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Andalip Rasi, for this very detailed kind of responses on this. Now, it is our turn, all of us sitting here. How are we going to take up these learnings? How are we going to identify them in different levels of actions? Where to disseminate, where to plan, where to think, where to act upon, where to find resources? Lot of questions are there that has been thrown up. The answers are not here. But as it was said in the opening session, this journey has to continue. So in the concluding session, there will be more insights about the continuing journey. And I would thank all the moderators of the session who gave the insights. And I also thank Mr. Joram Beda and Mr. Andali Prasi for the reflections. And thanks to all of you for a very interesting listening process and the taking forward process. Thank you so much. Over to you, Rahul.